Hello, product people. Welcome to the Product for Product podcast, hosted by Matt Green, data advocate and product manager, and Masha Mikanovsky, product leader and author. Our goal is to serve the product community by helping you find products that can help make your work in product management easier. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Product for Product podcast.
Welcome back. On today's episode, Masha and I will be speaking with Gerisha Nadaraju and Anabela Cesario about a growing role within product teams called product operations. Welcome to the show, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Gerisha and Anabela. Welcome to the show. We know you're talking from Europe, right? Yeah, so
yes,
this is a transatlantic podcast.
It is. Yeah, I'm based in London at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm based in Lisbon.
In Lisbon. Awesome.
Excellent.
So, welcome to the show. And we know both of you has a lot of experience with ProductOps. And we really we're excited to talk about that because we believe there is a lot of synergy between the products that product people are using and what ProductOps are doing. Let's first start with introducing yourself and who you are and how you got into ProductOps and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. I'll go first, I guess, Anabela. Firstly, thanks so much for inviting me onto the podcast, Moshe and Matt. I'm excited to be here and chatting to all of you. So I'm Gerisha Nadaraju, and as I said, I'm based in London, and I'm currently the head of product operations at Dojo, which is a UK fintech scale-up. And prior to Dojo, I worked at another UK fintech called TrueLayer, where I sort of started and launched and led a product operations function. I also host a ProductOps podcast, which I started in 2021 to share learnings about this emerging function and amplify voices in the space, like Anabela, who is actually on season 1 of the show. And I've previously also worked in business operations and sort of chief of staff type roles. So definitely coming from an operational background into product ops. I'm originally from South Africa, and in a previous life, I used to work as a chartered accountant and an investment analyst before I came to the UK in 2016 to do an MBA at Oxford.
Nice, very nice. Lots of experience there, and we'll dive into it soon. Anabela, all yours.
Okay. Thank you for having me here as well. It's really a pleasure to be with you guys, and again with Gerisha. It will be our third time together. So currently I'm the VP of Product Operations and Chief of Staff to the CPO at OutSystems, with the mission to empower teams in building products customers love. I joined OutSystems in 2016 to bootstrap the product ownership practice, reporting to the VP of Engineering. And then I moved to product management in 2019 to lead the product management team of 20 product managers. And in 2022, I was invited to bootstrap the product operations area. As I said, I'm based in Lisbon, the home of the Web Summit and an exciting tech scene nowadays. And when I'm not working, you can find me practicing yoga, jogging, traveling, and reading. And nowadays, I'm in the process of adopting a Labs dog called King. So that's me in a nutshell.
Wonderful.
That's awesome. We are dog lovers as well.
Yes.
Both Matt and I, both of us have dogs. Not a lab. I have a tiny, not so tiny, but a small poodle. And Matt,
Golden Doodle.
Golden Doodle. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And I think I met you, Anabela, or I connected with you a while ago when I was actually a user of OutSystems. I don't use it anymore because I moved from the company where we were using it at, but I think that's how I got to connect it to some people at OutSystems.
Okay, good to know. I didn't know that, but thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. So ProductOps, I can tell you from my experience that as a product manager in several positions, I was always had to do a lot of ProductOps because we didn't have ProductOps. So, but I know that there is also different definition out there of what ProductOps means and what does it include. So how do you define it?
Okay, I can start. I think that is a very good question. And as you probably know, ProductOps is a fairly new practice. There are a lot of definitions out there. And for me, product operations is all about improving the lives of our product managers, make them stronger product leaders. And the way we do it at OutSystems is mainly by first standardizing tools, processes, and governance. Second, make sure key data is centralized in a single source of truth in a way that allows PMs to make informed decisions. The third one is share and individualize best practices across the company. The fourth one is developing the onboarding program and providing other forms of training and coaching. And last but not least, supporting product strategy definition, deployment, and monitoring. This last part was our focus on last year, and it really made the difference in our organization.
Yeah, I agree with probably all of what you said, Anabela. And the thing is that there are so many different definitions, and I've had so many guests on my podcast also, and I've asked this question to them, and I get a slightly different answer, obviously, and focus from each person that comes on and for their teams. I think probably my broad definition of product ops, which I had at first and which I've still kept, is that it sort of is there to improve alignment and efficiency of scaling product teams by largely focusing on, I guess, comms, tools, processes, and better access to relevant information. And something I've added in recently and probably ties to Anabela's is the support element. It's also supporting the teams in getting there. And another thing I think it also helps answer is sort of how do you improve the internal stakeholder experience of building and shipping products, because you can do it efficiently, but it could be chaotic, and then it impacts sales and commercial and customer teams, and it's sort of trying to improve the way that we go about that internally. And I think probably different teams choose to focus on different aspects of the definition, mainly because it just depends on what are the most critical problems that they are currently facing. And that depends on what the organization looks like, what stage it's at. And so you'll have a different focus depending on that.
Yeah, that's definitely is a great definition there. I remember a while ago when I was thinking about that, I even created this small graphic on Canva, and I put in there in the middle, I put the product manager, around it, I put the learn, build, and measure, from the lean process. And around it, I put all the items that the product manager needs to do. And then around that, a big circle of all the things that, can help them to do that and how ProductOps can help with that. So it's really that outside, I will share with you that infographic.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah, we posted it on our product LinkedIn page, but yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I put that in the center then, and then we created an infographics that shows some the products that we talked about in our podcast and how we can support this process. So this is where really it takes us to the next discussion there about the products, because products play a key role in that. It's really to me at least, that's part of the part that interests me. Of course, processes is very important, because a product without a good process, it could be garbage in, garbage out, or people will not adopt it, or whatever, right? So what do you, let's focus a bit about product, because that's usually our focus on the podcast. What do you see going on over there with product operations? Who chooses the products, and how do you implement it, and things like that?
Okay, so in our company, it's my team responsibility to select all the tech stack, if I may so. So we select the products, and I can share that we have mainly three. We have a quote or a motto that is less is more. So we tend to have less products to be more efficient. So mainly we use product boards.
Yes.
I can talk a little about it because I'm a strong promoter of product boards, at least the way we did it at OutSystems. We also use Confluence and Miro. There are the three main products that we use. Product board is we call it single source of truth, our CRM for PM. And what we do mainly is they have a very good and strong insights module. So we have nowadays all the company giving us insights in the tool. By insights is product feedback. We have solution architects, salespeople, customer success managers, engineering. Our own PMs, whenever they go and talk with the customer, they bring the information. We are able to map the insights with our Salesforce account so we can understand and segment the feedback. So it's a good input for us. We also use it to prioritize initiatives. They have a concept of business drivers that we use to prioritize our initiatives. And the third module that is also very useful is roadmaps. We have defined and target roadmaps for specific audience. For instance, we have a specific view for engineering with a lot of context and information. We have a different one for marketing, another one for sales teams, and so on. So we really use it. What I can say more? I think Product Board is a good tool, but you guys need to be careful about the process that you put on top of the tool. Mm-hmm. So I always say that don't complicate. So focus on, I would say that on the 78% of the main use cases and leave the exceptions out. So I like the product, but again, the way we implement it in a simple and keep it simple way. Confluence, we use it as a complement whenever we need to write big narratives or provide more context about our initiatives. We have our product strategy and vision on Confluence. And then Miro, I think all of you guys know it is more for collaboration. We use it a lot during COVID lockdown, but I think the teams get used to it and it's really useful whenever we need to collaborate and so on.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. I love that. Keeping it simple is wonderful because as Michelle and I have seen, and we all know there's so many different products out there. And I think when product teams look at like what's the best solution, they get a kind of analysis paralysis of like, hey, I could use X, Y, and Z. And not having a product ops teammate there to help support you, that can definitely be a challenge. So being able to keep it simple is like a wonderful approach.
Yeah. Let me I forgot something that I believe is also really important, is the adoption. If you define a simple process, it will help you a lot on the adoption of the tool. So sometimes we are using Product Board. This is the second year with success. So PMs using it on a daily basis, several times a day. And especially, I think the main reason is because we built simple processes on top of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did have an episode about Product Board, but we're not, promoting any product over here specifically. It's always good to hear what people are using for sure.
Yep, full perspective.
Exactly. What about you, Gerisha? Do you have specific opinion on specific products?
Yeah, I would say I'm very much somebody who is now tool agnostic. So I don't, I definitely think about, I think the problem that you're trying to fix more and start with that and then look at the tool. So I'm not really biased towards any tool anymore. Mm-hmm. If it works or somebody's using it, because I think also it depends on your circumstances, right? You could come into a company where tools have already been chosen and are being adopted, maybe not used really well, but they're there. And so you kind of got to make do with that. Or you have the opportunity to choose a new tool, and that's great. And then you can look at it from scratch. So I would say, I think in terms of my involvement or ProductOps' involvement in tools that the product team uses, it sort of just depends. So at the moment, what I'm seeing is I can either sometimes be pulled in to choose the tool, so tool choice, or then helping to look at the initial tool adoption. So I think what Anabela was saying, like adoption is so key when you're rolling out a new tool. Another thing can be sort of helping with best practices on how to use a tool. Then there's like day-to-day usage, like, the team's using it. I'd say I probably don't go into that as much. So once something's up and running, they're using it. And then something I'm being pulled into more now is sort of just the admin of the tool. So I'm getting sort of slacked on like, Gerisha, are you the person who's looking after Miro? Are you the person who's looking after Notion? Are you the person who's looking after Dragonboat, which is the roadmap tool that we've chosen? So definitely it is, I guess, being seen as I am maybe the person in the absence of somebody else grabbing it to be the go-to person to help with some of the things when it comes to like renewal and payment. But yeah, linked to what Anabela was saying, we definitely use Miro a lot for sort of whiteboarding and retros, and it's so helpful for collaboration as with teams. I also use it a lot in my role. I often have to facilitate, I guess, product leadership meetings, or I'm often a facilitator. And having Miro to facilitate an exercise keeps us on point and stops us from going down this rabbit hole of ideas or thoughts, or, you can spend so much of time on things. We're sort of using a mix for documentation of, I'd say, just Google Docs, Confluence, like Anabela mentioned, and Notion. So Anabela's great, because I know when I spoke to her too, she was like, yeah, we use these three key tools and we make them work. And I'd say I'm definitely in an organization where we're still trying to figure that out. And we're looking at how do you use a tool and why, and should we move towards full adoption or not? So you're sort of in that messy bit where it's like, how do we best optimize for these different pieces of documentation that people are putting out there? We also have a tribe model. So different tribes are maybe adopting things that work better for them. And then it's trying to figure out, how do we take the tribe model to a company sort of hat model, and then make sure there's consistency. And then, the teams definitely use Jira, but that's more at a squad level. And our product roadmap tool at the moment and sort of portfolio management tool is Dragonboat, which is a fairly newish tool. I've used Airtable previously for roadmaps, and even Google Sheets, which I know a lot of people have used, but it's kind of to bridge that gap between Jira and then your company level exec view on KPIs. Like, how do you roll things up so that different people can see different things? And that's starting to help us with that, I would say.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And how do you standardize a product across a company? And I'm not sure the sizes of your company, but it sounds like both of them are quite big. So how do you do that, with this day and age where there is all of these free tools and, product-led growth tools that people just choose and start using, like Miro and others, or Notion. And so the bottom up versus top down, how do you get there? Do you want to get to a stage that maybe similar to Anabela's situation, that everyone is using the same thing? And I might be wrong there, Anabela. Maybe there is still, you have these pockets of people using specific things, or you like this actually, that people are using whatever works for them, but that might create more work for you from operations to get everyone talking and working together on the same thing.
Yeah, I'd say on that, you want certain things standardized for sure. So I think Anabela also mentioned it, like single source of truth, centralized database, or you like, I think potentially for your roadmaps and, what people are working on, I would want one place, and we decide and we stick to it and we optimize and make sure it works. But for other things, there's an element, if it's coming from the ground up, and people, which was happening with Notion, for example, teams actually just, people were actually loving it and documenting it and starting to use it because it's coming from the bottom up and there's adoption. Maybe the company choice was Google Docs, obviously, but there was a need for this and people are saying, hey, I want to use it. So that's where it becomes a thing. Well, actually, this might be something we should investigate. And I think probably what I'm looking at now is, okay, well, the product team is very keen for this. What does that mean for the rest of the business? Does everybody have to go to Notion, or what sort of accessibility is required or needed? Like, if information is flowing out to other stakeholders, then it has to be accessible. We'd have to go, you want to use something, you can't block out people or stakeholders that need to help you do something. So I think there it's who's your audience, and is it going to help you get your work done? And if it's preventing that, then we should definitely, either move to something that everybody should adopt, or if it's working for your squad and that's the only people that need to know it, do it yourself. Do what you need to do to make sure that you're more efficient there.
Yeah, I agree with Gerisha in the sense that in some situations it could be more the exceptions. Teams use other tools, but they are, again, the exceptions. For instance, regarding customer interviews, we don't have a centralized tool. So some cases, and my team is always monitoring the adoption. And so far, we are lucky to have the team adopting the tool. But if not, if something starts organically, we will support it as well. Mainly, we need to understand the engagement, and if really is solving a good problem, we can support on that.
Mm-hmm. And then do you have a process for choosing a product? So let's say someone comes to you and say, we really need we have this problem, we need to solve it, get us the product. So do you have any specific process for that?
Our process, I think, as I said, I was a previous product manager, so I tend to think like a product manager. ProductOps is my product, and our process, in my opinion, is simple. So everything starts with our customer, the PM, and our stakeholders. And what we do is we do a round of discovery phases. We do it now every 6 months. We talk with key people and we identify the main problems. And in the beginning, having a single source of truth was one of our top problems. And what we did, we talked with a lot of people, we identify a pattern, a need. So after that, we sit with them and understood what were the key use cases. And we select, I remember that I created a one-pager, and I think I had 6 or 7 main cases and use cases. And I'm talking about we should have all the product insights on the tool, the roadmap view, and so on. And based on the main use cases, they came from the team. We select a vendor. Again, we had to study the tools based on the use cases. When usually we select 3, and then we do a kind of a POC with some area inside the team, and we have a champion, someone that we know that is motivated to help us test the tool and select the tool. They will also bring their day-to-day experience and the needs. And after having the POC done, we select the tool. And after that, we will do a progressive rollout, again, bringing the champion with us to promote the product. After implementing, and in Product Board, we took 3 months to do the rollout for the teams. And then with stakeholders, we did it. We select several stakeholders a quarter. In the first quarter, we select 2 and so on. And the last part is that we continue to do now is the monitoring the adoption. We are always trying to understand why they are using or not. And what helps in my case is that we are always focused on solving the product manager problem. So, and I think that's why they don't create organic needs, because we talk with them, we understand the problem, we go and help to fix the problem. So they are focusing the customer and the product, and they don't spend time in tools. So that's
I wish I had someone like that in my last 10 positions.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Solving product manager problems. That's awesome. We're always trying to solve customer problems, but we have our own problems. So that's awesome.
Yes, exactly. We always had to, and that's really why product ops is so growing these days, and why it's so important in many organizations. Thank you for that. That was really cool. What about you, Gerisha? Do you have a specific process, or is it very similar?
I'd say it's very similar to what Anabela mentioned, which was, starting with a problem statement, like what and trying to get to the root cause of that, because people may say things, but it may be something else that's actually driving the problem. And then sort of, I guess, use cases, but I found what's helpful is, if you haven't started, it could be as simple as a Google Sheet or a Google Doc, but something that sort of maps out what you want this tool to do, or because I think we start with the problems and then you don't actually know. And when you do that, you suddenly might realize that actually there are like different views, or there's different things we're trying to solve. Can one tool actually solve all of these things or not? So that's really helpful. And then I don't know if Anabela mentioned it, but I started in like a very small startup when my previous jobs. I'm used to we kind of have to look at what we have already to see, realistically, can we work with what we've got? Are there integrations that can happen? So first do that, and then your current stack basically, and then look at different options. The one thing I found really helpful in looking at different options, and I used this recently in my current role when we were looking at the product roadmap tool, is reaching out to the wider product ops community on like a Slack channel that we're all in and saying, hey, I'm currently facing these problems. I'm looking for a tool that can do this, this, and this. Have any of you seen something that works? And it was amazing. There was a thread of like, I don't know, 17 comments or something coming in really quickly from people who were trialing like the two things we wanted to look at, and very quickly gave me like the pros and cons that they were seeing in real time. And that would have taken me, that insight to do that would have taken so long. And I was getting it. Obviously, it might not be the same for your company, but that was such a powerful way of getting immediate and quick feedback into maybe what tool I should be using, because people were going through the same thing. So I think that's something I've learned now too, is tapping into that resource outside of just your company, because other people may have seen something.
So first of all, I would like to be on that Slack as well, because it will help us. It will help us find guests to the podcast much easier these days. But also something Anabela mentioned about the POC. This day and age, with free licenses or free trial times, it's a much easier thing to do a POC, because I find it that it's very hard to actually know how the product will work for you only from looking at the marketing information on the website. There is a lot of things that are not hidden, but they're not explained properly, or they're not, they may apply differently to your situation, or the devil is in the detail. Yep. And definitely there is details in many of those applications that are not apples to apples, or they're not exactly the same thing, or something like that. I was just talking today with someone that is evaluating onboarding in-app messaging flows, and we're talking about translation. So the products that he was looking at, all of them says they're supporting translation. So he checked it out all up. But because I was familiar with this product, I was like, yeah, but. So yes, they support translation, but in some of them, you will have to go and get a translator and pay him lots of money per word to translate your work and then import it into the system and all of that stuff, where another one actually does it automatically for you. So that's a big difference, right? Yep. So a POC is definitely something you would want to do.
On that POC point, I 100% agree with that on trialing it. I'd say something I've experienced though is sometimes you don't have the luxury of as much time as you would want on a trial. And the reality on the ground is that really like a decision has to be made really quickly sometimes. And so you during the trial, but ultimately, and I think, I don't know if Matt or you or Moshe who mentioned this analysis paralysis, suddenly it's like, oh, well, we have to decide in like, very quickly, like whether we implement this or not and just go with it. And so I think one thing just to remember is that the reality on the ground, even though that's theoretically like the stuff that you'd always want to do, you don't always have the luxury of being able to do that.
That's a really good point, Gerisha, because I was lucky when I I had a team of 3, myself and two people, and we were in a hyper growth stage, and I have my CPO support on that. So that allowed me to have the luxury of doing the POC. I had 2 people in my team. And sometimes what we see in the community is that we have a lot of realities of a ProductOps team of 1. And with only 1 person, this is really difficult to do. I was lucky to have the opportunity, but sometimes makes completely the difference.
Absolutely. So we talked a lot about products that help the team do their job, like road mapping and work management and communication and ideation. What about things like, data analytics and things like that? Are those also managed by ProductOps?
In my case, they are. We have a team that is focused on the product analytics, and that help us to monitor and define metrics, especially product adoption metrics, and help us to monitor them, and also help us to cross-correct the strategy using the data they collect.
So that's as part of ProductOps?
Yeah.
I'd say on my side, I mean, we have a product analytics function, and it's separate from product operations. And there are lots of instances where there's collaboration, or, product analytics potentially has to help build out views in some of the products or the tools that I'm maybe looking at, like, for example, the roadmap tool. In our case, product analytics kind of owns how they want to view the information or what tool they use, which is called Looker in our instance. And my job is more to think, okay, well, how do we make sure that we can then visualize what they're doing and how they're working with, they work with product teams, they have people embedded in squads. How do we just make sure that whatever they're using or where it's being housed can integrate with the different tools we use, or we make sure that we're able to view it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that it makes sense either way, I guess, based on the organization as well. And then what about products for research, user testing, A/B testing, and things like that?
I'll just jump in and say also not in my case, because again, I'm in a company that's quite large and we have sort of lots of different functions.
Mm-hmm.
So on the customer side, we have, for example, a customer insights team who looks at how they're going to, get their customer research. And what I need to do is help make sure that whatever they're doing, we have good feedback loops in place. So if there's a problem with that and we're not servicing it, then it's a case of, okay, well, where's the breakdown in comms, or, why is that not flowing to the teams correctly? And then customer insights. And what was the other one that you mentioned, Moshe?
User testing.
Yeah, the other thing is, again, I think product analytics, we've got within that experimentation, and then also product analytics does a bit of work on that. So between them, they're kind of figuring out with the teams what is best.
In our case, is a similar situation. As Gerisha explained, we don't have a centralized tool, and mainly we work and adapt to the teams with whom we work, to the tool that they use. In some cases, we have our users, our product experience team and product UX team. So they have the tools, we use them in collaboration with them. Customer is more, we also work with other areas. So we don't have a centralized tool for that.
Are there any special products that you use that it's not specifically for the product team, but for...
I think probably I use the same sort of tools that the team is using largely. So, a lot of my time is taken up sometimes putting in place documentation. And so it would be either be using the Google Docs suite that we use as a company, or Notion, which we're starting to use within the product team, and then doing stuff within the roadmap. So it's usually documentation, road mapping, and then the other sort of area I kind of see in product ops is around project management, tasky type stuff, where you have to keep track of maybe your own work, or you want to better plan how you're going to do a project. And so those are tools sometimes that come into play, like Trello or Asana or things like that.
Yeah, in our case, and if I'm talking specifically about product operations, my team, we use some standard techniques to support our operating model, and I'm talking about defining a mission for our ProductOps team, a strategy, some North Star metrics, and OKRs. And we also have created a tool that we called Product Management System Excellence Tool, And the goal here is to help us monitor the success of the product management team by monitoring the main outcomes that the team needs to achieve. And you can see this like a health scan on how product management is operating. It's a simple Excel spreadsheet that, based on the set of outcomes that the PM team needs to achieve, we use it to give the PM team focus and direction, and help us to raise the bar and try to put the PM team to perform at a top level. Nice. Basically, and giving you an idea, imagine that we need to do a good enablement session about a new release. And we have in this tool, we have kind of a question that whenever we have a enablement session, we ask them, okay, is this session useful for us? But also, are the information that we are sharing being useful for your daily work? So again, not only having a good set of the session, but more than that, the outcome is that enable the sales guys or the field team to be ready to support and engage with customers' conversation. So we have a lot of these type of questions that we centralize in the Excel, and you really help us to understand the efficiency of the team.
Nice. And maybe eventually you will build an OutSystem app for that.
Yeah,
we had a series in the past for no-code systems, but OutSystem is a low-code, so we didn't use that. But
yeah.
Okay, very cool. Matt, do you have any other questions?
No, this has been extremely helpful. I think this is a really fascinating area that I'm looking to learn more about, and I appreciate both of you coming on the show. I think it's a real benefit to product teams, and I think we'll see more of it in the future, and I hope to see it areas that I'm working on to help support us as product managers. Really looking forward to seeing it grow in the industry.
Yeah. And one of the things I think we got out of this is both Matt and I are now jealous of your product managers that have you on their team. And I'm sure many other product managers will be jealous after listening to this episode. But hey, there is a way to grow there. And many product operations people are coming from product management because they know the pain.
And then I think evangelizing it, I'm a fan of the podcast, Gerisha, Anabela, the episode you're on's great. So just being able to evangelize it and see it more in the industry, I think will help continue to further discussion and hopefully it'll be part of just all product teams, no matter where you are.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for saying all those things. I agree. I'd say probably when I started in ProductOps, it did feel very emerging and like nascent. But I think, people like Anabela who have scaled ProductOps teams and have really great practices in place, I'm almost seeing the trend where, maybe it's come up, it's emerging, people are trying to figure out how to scale it. And now in some areas, the question is more on like best practices of ProductOps. So while some people may not have it at all, it's also sort of on, in parallel evolving quite well in different areas. So that's kind of the trends that I'm seeing there.
Yeah. And we're hoping also that our podcast will be helpful for some ProductOps people to know what products are available and to choose them because of some things that they heard here. So that's our little contribution to that community.
I forgot to mention that, and I can share with you guys and you can share with the community. My team has Miro board where we make available a lot of product management and also product operations content. And my team has what we call ProductOps and Rep Talk series, where we have explained the story of our first year, how we select product board, how we launch internal B2B product management academy. So we have 12 episodes about data, what are the metrics that we use, and so on. So it's a free tool, use it. And if someone from the community has questions, reach out to us. It will be a pleasure to help and to share what we have done.
Excellent. We will add it to the, please do send it over to us. We'll add it to the description of the episode, as well as to the LinkedIn posts on that. Yeah, no, this has been a pleasure. Where can people reach out to you?
In my case, LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn is the simplest way to do. So send me a message. I do some pro bono sessions. So if you want to discuss some ProductOps topics, or reach out and I will share my Calendly and we can chat about it.
Yeah, very similar to Anabela. Definitely just find me on LinkedIn under Gerisha Nadaraju. And I also have a page for the podcast. So if you search for ProductOps podcast on LinkedIn, you can sort of follow it there. It's also on Anchor and Spotify. So, you can look for it there. I will say that season 3 of the podcast is coming out soonish. So it will be in the next few months. So look out for that. So yeah, that's going to be exciting. And this is good practice for me because you've put me in the shoes of my customer in a way. And so I'm getting good practice for that new season.
Yeah, that might be the difference between your podcast and ours, where we're just like swinging it. And when we have an episode, we release it. And you seems very planned with seasons and stuff. But I guess that's also one of the differences between product managers and product ops. So
I need to factor in downtime. I've learned
Yeah.
the hard way about like boundaries and balance. So
I
I do
know.
it, and then
Yeah.
I put some time off, and then get into it again. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you again so much.
Thank you both, and thank you to all the listeners. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you to all the listeners. We really appreciate the feedback and support. Please leave us a review to help others find the show on Apple or Spotify or anywhere else you're listening to the show.